All right, welcome back to another episode of EventHubs Talk and Block. I am John Catalyst Gray, and with me as always is John Velociraptor Guerrero.
And with me is another John. Please welcome JM Crofts. He is a streamer. He is an 09er, as I just found out behind the scenes. JM, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, really happy to be here, guys. I feel like everyone in the FGC, you know, I've been reading EventHubs for a really long time, so it's cool to get to do something with you guys.
Oh, well, I've been having fun, you know, posting some of your videos and some of your content. You've been doing a lot of interesting things, but I'll jump right in. I'll jump right into it here. The game that you've been focusing on a lot that I've seen in recent times is Third Strike, Street Fighter 3. And the reason that's particularly interesting to me, or to us, I should say, right now, is because that game is hailed as very polarizing in the Street Fighter community for sure. Wasn't very successful in a lot of ways, but it is hailed as one of the best competitive and what would you say, a sort of like skill-based Street Fighter competitions in the franchise's history. Everyone loves that parry. Everyone loves that moment 37 and what it took to pull that off and how amazing it was and all that kind of stuff. So I think that there is a decent bit of overlap in terms of gameplay, skill-based competitive gameplay that we are seeing Capcom sample from Street Fighter 3 and put in, or try to put in, to Street Fighter 6. And in a perfect world, Street Fighter 6 will be this game that's good for casuals, it's good for competitors, it checks all the boxes, and everybody and their mother can have something to do and something to appreciate about this game. So what I want to ask you first of all, JM, since you've been playing this game, Third Strike, quite a bit in recent times, can you talk about what makes you feel like, if you agree with this, that Third Strike's gameplay is especially fun for the competitively minded player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true, that like Third Strike is one of the games where you're constantly getting rewarded the more time you put in. So it never feels like you really hit that limit of diminishing returns where it's like, oh, there's nothing left for me to grind, you know, like what am I gonna do? Like you're always, you know, whether it's, you know, parry setups, red parries, like obscure confirms into super, like there's so much to learn. And there's been like a big talking point lately of like player expression, or like the terminology that Maximilian dude uses is like loose games versus tight games, meaning like a loose game has a lot more options open to you, whereas a tight game is more like the way the developers intend for the game to play is how it plays. So I think Third Strike is super loose. There's so much opportunity for expression. You can play every character in different styles depending on like what style suits you best. Also, you know, every character has 3 supers, and even the supers that aren't like good or like meta or used that often, like I just did a video recently about Makoto Tanden Renki. You never see this super because you can't block while you're doing it. But like there are those players out there where like that's their thing. They're like, I want to be the best Tanden Renki player on the block, and they just grind and get good with it. So Third Strike has so much opportunity for that. Whereas like Street Fighter 5, you know, overall I think Street Fighter 5 ended up in a good place by the end of its lifespan. It had a rough launch, but by the end of it, you know, I think it ended up being a fun game. But one of the problems with it that I think sort of rubbed a lot of longtime players the wrong way is the game plays the way it's intended. The way that the developer wants you to play Ryu, that's the way you're going to be playing Ryu. There's not that much room for like, ooh, I really want to express myself by finding some niche thing, some out of the box thing, some unique play style. Like it's kind of hard to tell, like if we're watching a video of, you know, like Punk playing Karen versus, you know, another like top Karen player like Mago or whatever, like it's not that easy to tell which one you're looking at just by looking. There are little things that can tip you off, like, oh, Punk is so good at hitting this hit confirm or whatever. So sometimes there's stuff like that, but for the most part the play styles aren't going to be that different between the players. So I feel like a lot of people have kind of felt that player expression has been missing, and we're really hoping that Street Fighter 6 might bring it back, you know, bring back a little bit of that old school flavor where you can go off the rails a little bit and be a little more experimental.
You brought up Street Fighter 5 there, and I will give it credit that they have fleshed it out. They've given additional V skills, additional V triggers, so that you do have some options to mix and match and make the character and the style your own. But it has had a rough time sort of getting away from this is how you play optimally. Do you feel like Street Fighter 6 is going to detach from that a little bit, or provide a more like a vast array of options for people to explore and to basically make any character their own?
So in terms of like how, like what's being done in Street Fighter 6 that implies to me that this is something that maybe they're kind of trying to change, or a direction they're trying to go in, there's kind of two main things, right? The first one is parry, right? So Street Fighter 6 brings back parry, and it's definitely not the same as Third Strike parry. There's a lot of major differences, like parry can whiff in Street Fighter 6, whereas in Third Strike, if you whiff a parry, your character doesn't do anything. You know, you can instantly block after whiffing a parry, so it's not that bad. So there are major differences, but like parry in general kind of serves as a tool to prevent your opponent from doing the same thing over and over. You know, like even if a move is really abusable and broken, like Chun-Li crouching medium kick or stand fierce, like these are busted moves that are so hard to deal with, but if they're just doing crouching medium kick over and over, fishing for super, you can parry and blow them up. So I feel like the idea is there with parry in Street Fighter 6. We've definitely seen, it seems like you don't get that much reward off of a normal parry in Street Fighter 6. It seems like most moves you don't get a punish if you parry them normally. You might get like you save yourself some chip damage, or like you might get like a minor thing, but you're not going to get like a full combo for parrying like a stray medium punch or something, unless it's a perfect parry. So perfect parrying is like a whole other can of worms, and we do know that the timing on perfect parry is very strict. I've heard it's something like 4 or 5 frames, whereas parry in Third Strike is 10 frames, so it's a lot harder to hit a perfect parry in 6, so we'll have to see how that works. But definitely the option of having parry as this universal thing that's like, if you know your opponent's going to attack and you parry it, like, you know, that's going to turn the situation around on them. So that's something that's available in 6. Although there is no red parry in 6, so that's another thing. Like red parry can help prevent, you know, sort of...
Can you explain what that is really quick? Just
yeah, so red parrying is parrying out of block stun. So like a multi-hit move, you can block one hit and then parry. And it's really hard to do, but it opens up so much. So there's stuff like Akuma crouching medium kick into fireball is pretty abusable, but if you can red parry the fireball, you can punish it. So all of a sudden this like really insane neutral tool that Akuma has becomes a little bit risky. Or like Necro, he has like his spinning like half circle forward punch move. It's safe on block, like you can space it out so that you can counter poke them if they try to take their turn after. It's like such a ridiculous move, but it's a major downside that it's a multi-hit move, meaning that once they block the first hit, they can react and red parry the second hit. So these are just more things to be like, hey, even if you have a move that is really ridiculous on paper, like everything about this move is good. The frame data, the range, the hitboxes, everything is so good. But if I know you're going to do it, I can parry it. So that option being there is really huge. So SF6 doesn't have red parry, so that reduces some of the options a little bit, but it does have guard cancel, or I forget what it's called, like drive reversal or whatever. So it does have something that you can do while you're blocking, which like notably Street Fighter 4 didn't have that. I think a lot of people kind of felt that was a big problem with Street Fighter 4, was there's literally nothing you can do while blocking. No push block, no alpha counter, no guard cancel, red parry, anything like that. So Street Fighter 5 had V reversal, and now Street Fighter 6 is going to have something similar. So options on block seem pretty good. So anyway, that was a long rant just about how parry could be one of the things that, you know, they're sort of trying to add a little more freedom to the game. And then the other one is just that they're giving characters more moves. They're giving characters so many moves in this. Like, have we noticed that Ryu and Chun have like Chun, she has a new stance, and that has like 4 different enders or whatever. So Chun-Li has like a million new moves, and she has up kicks, which she hasn't had in a few games. And like Ryu can charge Denjin. Ryu has like this new like short range Hadouken. Like every returning character is getting all these new things, whereas Street Fighter 5 move lists felt a little empty. Like Zangief didn't have green hand. Like a lot of characters were like missing notable moves. So now, you know, I think it's good for characters to have moves, even if they're not like good. Like even if there's a move where you look at it and you're like, why would you ever use this? This move is bad. Like non-EX green hand in SF4 for Geef was like a big example. Everyone's like, this move's bad.
On hit.
Yeah, it's punishable on hit. Why would you ever do it? But you know, it turns out there are uses. You know, you can blow up fireballs with it. You can use it to like move forward in space. Like there are reasons why you would do it. So having more options, I think, generally tends to just make the characters feel more complete. So that's something I'm looking forward to as well.
Yeah, it's something that in Street Fighter 5 that they really heavily addressed with the DLC characters. I'm a Rose main, and when people say, oh, this game is not... I played Rosa Minot after initially playing Bison, who's not technical at all, and one of the most stone cold stupid characters I've ever seen in a fighting game, and unfortunately Street Fighter V has a plethora of those. There's some really bad design elements in Street Fighter V, but there's some really good ones as well. And it looks like the philosophy there, like Rose has got 5 core special moves, and what they're doing is Ryu's got more special moves and other stuff than he's ever had in a fighting game in Street Fighter 6, and they're really throwing the kitchen sink at people in this game and saying like, okay, we've heard that complaint, here is everything you should need plus some, and then play in whatever style you want to, do whatever approach you want to. It's such a heavy correction from what Street Fighter V was, especially with the launch cast. Again, the DLC characters generally fixed these issues, but the launch cast is who most people play and what most people experience, so it was a big ball drop there for Capcom.
One of the first things that comes to mind in the comparison of Street Fighter V here is when V-triggers would come into play, especially earlier on. Like I think of Akuma, remember when he could cancel his fireball on whiff into his V-trigger activation, which meant that once you had enough experience against him, you realized that once Akuma had V-trigger stocked, the game changed and you just needed to wait for that to come out, because the risk of doing anything there was almost always going to be not worth trying. Like, oh, I read your fireball and I jumped over it. You should be going to Pain Town right now. But instead, oh, I have forever as the Akuma to anti-air you, maybe side switch you into the corner, and I have V-trigger to combo you with. And plus, I'm going to have some more of it after I finish this combo. And then a lot of characters could just put a very heavy move or a sweep on you, activate into V-trigger, and you knew you were just going to be holding this situation. It was fairly predictable, and I think that's a big part of what makes Third Strike and potentially Street Fighter 6, and especially because of this parry we've been talking about, those games don't appear to be as predictable. So it's like, even if you're in this situation, you have a chance, and it's sort of a skill-based chance, which is interesting too, to escape, to change things around. And then, you know, look no further than Moment 37 is probably the shining example of that. Even when you don't have time to react to the super itself, once the flashes happen, right. Daigo got, he was preparing, but he also got a little lucky there. A situation like that, even that you can escape technically if you're really good. And if you do, oh my gosh, we'll remember you forever because it was this amazing display. And I think that Street Fighter 6, Capcom is trying to give players the opportunity to make those showcases kind of happen again, specifically through perfect parry. Regular parry, like you were kind of getting at, JM, it feels almost like a lot of times it's not good. It's like you don't want to be regular parrying most things unless it's a multi-hitting super and you can absorb all those hits and build a bunch of meter and still have time to punish. But I do think that this game feels like you always have that potential for comeback, that potential for, and again, skill-based comeback through that perfect parry. So that's one of the things that it's really resonated with me, and I'm really excited to directly explore, firsthand. But yeah. I've
only played Street Fighter 6 for about an hour, so not that much compared to some people who I know have had the chance at like multiple events. But yeah, regular parry to me, it feels kind of like focus dash in Street Fighter 4. So like you can focus, absorb, attack, and then dash. So that has some uses, like you can focus dash a fireball and you save the chip damage and you give yourself a little ultra. So if you parry a fireball in SF6, you save yourself the chip damage and you build a little bit of V gauge. So it's kind of like that. And then there are some moves that are like so slow on recovery that you could focus dash punish them in 4. Like I remember Hazanshu for Chun-Li. I played Chun-Li a lot, and her flip kick Hazanshu, you could focus dash into like close strong with Ryu and like link into fierce. That was like your go-to punish. So that's kind of what normal parry feels like. If it's like a move with a lot of recovery, you can normal parry and maybe get a juicy punish. But if it's just some random normal, like you're not really gonna get anything. In fact, you might even be exposing yourself to danger, because there's this little guessing game that happens when you're doing a parry and you're like, how long should I hold it? Like, are they going to be ready for me to let go right here? Should I just do a short one and hope that they don't hit me during recovery? Because it does have some frames of recovery. It can be a little bit scary.